Incarnation, Reincarnation, Rebirth, the Grail light on continuity of the Spirit. Forward. The circle of life unbroken, the divine justice of continuity. From the beginning of human reflection, man has wondered, whence do I come, and whither do I go? He looks upon the face of the newborn and marvels at the mystery of arrival. He stands before the stillness of the grave and trembles at the mystery of departure. Yet between these two portals, birth and death, he perceives only fragments, not the whole. His vision, clouded by sensuality and self-conceit, sees only the short arc of one lifetime and therefore calls life unjust. But the circle of existence is divine, not human. The beginning and end perceived by man are only gateways through which the spirit passes on its eternal journey. The law that governs this rhythm is perfect in justice, perfect in love, and perfect in wisdom, for it comes from the light. Every birth is not a beginning, but a continuation. Every death is not an end, but a transition. The spirit reaps and sows through time, gathering experiences, purifying itself through recognition and struggle, rising slowly toward its origin in the eternal heights. Nothing is lost, nothing is forgotten. All is preserved in the threads of divine law. Yet the modern intellect, blinded by materialism and religious dogma, denies this justice of continuity. It reduces man to dust and memory, or forces him into rigid doctrines that cannot explain life's inequalities or suffering. In its blindness, it calls God unjust or cruel, unable to reconcile the apparent injustice of life with the concept of divine perfection. This book speaks into that confusion. It reveals, through the light of the Grail Message, that reincarnation is not fantasy, not superstition, not an invention of the East. It is a manifestation of the eternal laws of God. Through these pages, the reader will learn that the law of reciprocal action, the seed and its harvest, extends beyond one lifetime, that divine justice is not delayed, but unfolds in perfect timing across the span of human existence. This is not a teaching to comfort curiosity, but to awaken responsibility. For whoever knows that life is continuous can no longer excuse wrongdoing or sloth, nor despair in suffering, nor envy the wicked. He begins to see the hand of God in all things, and he learns to walk humbly, sowing seeds of light. Thus, may the earnest reader approach these words in reverence and openness. Let him not cling to inherited dogmas or the opinions of men, but listen to the quiet voice within, the voice of the Spirit, which recognizes truth by its luminous ring. For truth does not need belief to exist, it reveals itself to those who are pure in heart and willing to see. Introduction. The mystery of human existence, from birth to beyond. Man lives, yet he does not know why. He is born, but he knows not whence he came. He dies, and he knows not whither he goes. He builds his philosophies upon the shifting sands of ignorance and calls them truth. And because he sees only the fragment of one short life, he judges all existence falsely. The mystery of human existence cannot be understood if we confine ourselves to the small room of one lifetime. For man is not flesh, nor blood, nor brain, he is spirit. The body is only the instrument, the tool, the clothing of the spirit for a period of earthly experience. When the work is finished or the garment worn out, the spirit lays it aside and continues on its journey through the beyond, until the time comes for another opportunity to mature through new earthly experiences. This continuous cycle of coming and going, of birth and death, is not an endless prison but a school of grace. In it, divine justice operates with absolute precision, giving to each spirit the opportunity to balance what it has disturbed, to heal what it has wounded, to complete what it has left undone. What men call fate, or chance, are but the harvests of former sowings. The child born in affluence or misery, with talent or deformity, reaps from seeds long sown before. And yet, each new birth brings with it mercy, a new beginning, a new field in which the spirit can sow rightly again. But humanity, blinded by intellect and sensuality, has severed itself from this understanding. It no longer perceives the connection between life and law, between spirit and form. It denies the continuity of existence, and so, it has lost the key to divine justice. This book, in the light of the eternal word, will lift the veil. It will show that all creation is ordered by immutable laws, laws which guide the spirit from the moment of its emergence from the spiritual realm to its final return to the light. It will show that there is no injustice, no accident, no coincidence, only divine wisdom at work in silence. Thus, let us step beyond the prison of time and look with spiritual eyes upon life as a continuous stream, flowing from eternity into eternity. Only then will man understand himself and the meaning of existence. Chapter 1. The Spirit and Matter, the Descent of the Soul into Form. Before the mountains rose or the stars shone, the Spirit existed as pure essence in the luminous realms of God. From that height, in obedience to the will of the Creator, spirit germs went forth, small, radiant seeds, into the lower regions of creation, where they would awaken, unfold, and mature through experience. This descent of the Spirit into matter is not a fall, but an opportunity. Just as a seed must enter the soil to unfold its hidden life, so the Spirit must enter the world of matter to become self-conscious and strong. The earth, therefore, is a school of awakening, a garden in which the divine seeds of spirit germinate and ripen. But matter is heavy, and the spirit must take on coverings, subtle and dense, so that it can function in this world. The earthly body is the outermost covering, formed through the attraction of corresponding elements. It is the instrument, not the essence of man. The spirit animates it as the musician breathes life into his instrument, yet remains distinct from it. Incarnation, therefore, is the union of spirit and matter for a time. Through this union, the spirit learns, acts, and shapes its destiny. When it departs, the body falls lifeless, but the spirit carries with it all that it has experienced, engraved upon the fine threads of its spiritual cloak. This descent happens under divine law, never by accident. Every spirit incarnates in the place, family, and conditions that best correspond to its inner nature and needs. The law of attraction ensures that each soul is born where it can reap its harvest and sow anew. But because mankind today has identified itself with the body and intellect, it sees only the visible, and so, it mistakes the tool for the master. The spirit sleeps beneath the weight of matter, forgetful of its home and purpose. Thus begins the long path of awakening, through sorrow, through experience, through love and pain, until the spirit recognizes itself once more as a child of light. Chapter 2. The Law of Reciprocal Action, the Seed and the Rebirth. Every thought, every word, every deed is a seed sown into the soil of creation. Under the law of reciprocal action, that seed must ripen and return to the sower, whether in this life or another. This is not punishment, but justice, living, automatic, and incorruptible. The law of reciprocal action is the great teacher of the spirit. It mirrors to man the effects of his choices so that he may learn and rise. When he sows hatred, hatred returns. When he sows love, love blossoms. The earth and the beyond are filled with the fruits of mankind's sowing, good and evil intertwined in endless fields awaiting harvest. Because the span of one lifetime is too short for all sowings to return, the harvest stretches across incarnations. The man who inflicts suffering today may taste its bitterness in a later life, and the one who uplifts others may receive help in his hour of need through the same law. Thus, no deed is lost, and no injustice endures. Every effect finds its cause, and every cause bears its fruit. Reincarnation, therefore, is the necessary complement of the law of reciprocal action. Without it, divine justice would appear broken, for countless deeds would never return to their origin. But with it, all becomes luminous, harmonious, complete. The wise man, recognizing this, no longer asks, "Why me?" When adversity comes. He knows that the law brings him only what he has sown, so that he may learn and purify. He ceases to blame others and begins to sow consciously, acts of light, words of truth, thoughts of love. He becomes a conscious co-worker with the will of God. Thus, Through many lives and many lessons, the spirit ripens until it is free of all that binds it to the cycle of return. Then, standing radiant and pure, it ascends once more toward the light from which it came, having fulfilled the divine purpose of existence. Chapter 3. The Law of Gravity and Attraction, the Drawing of Like to Like. In all creation, the same law that governs the movement of stars also governs the movement of souls. The law of gravity in the spiritual sense does not refer to physical weight alone, but to the inner weight of essence, that which draws every being to its corresponding level of existence. Every thought, every desire, every inclination adds or removes weight to the spiritual cloak. A soul burdened with selfishness, hatred, or sensuality becomes dense, heavy, and sinks into the darker strata of the beyond after death, among others of similar nature. A soul filled with purity, love, and striving for truth becomes light, ascending naturally to luminous regions, where it is drawn to spirits of like essence. This law of gravity operates together with the law of attraction, which binds like to like. Thus, no injustice or confusion can arise in the spiritual world. Each being finds itself among those whose inner vibrations harmonize with its own. The proud cannot dwell with the humble, nor the deceitful with the truthful, for they repel each other by their very nature. This same law is at work on earth. A man is drawn to circumstances, people, and events that correspond to his inner condition. When darkness reigns in him, he attracts dark surroundings. When light radiates from him, he draws brightness and peace. Therefore, the wise man no longer blames fate, for he knows that he himself is the magnet of his destiny. Wherever a man stands, he stands in the field of his own vibration. He can only ascend by refining his inner nature, by purifying his thoughts and motives. As he does so, the weight of his cloak lessens, and he rises to purer realms. This is not symbolic poetry, it is living law, active and exact in all creation. Hence, the drawing of like to like is divine mercy, for it ensures order, peace, and justice. Were it not so, heaven and earth would be chaos. But because the law is living, eternal, and incorruptible, every soul must dwell where it truly belongs, until, through purification and recognition, it becomes light enough to rise. This is why Jesus said, "Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." Your treasure is your inner essence, the vibration that determines where you belong. The choice is always yours, to sink or to rise. Chapter 4. The Weaving of Fate, Threads from Past Lives. Fate is not chance, nor is it a cruel decree of an arbitrary God. It is the woven tapestry of our own deeds, spun from the threads we ourselves have sent forth through time. Each thought, each word, each act creates a radiant or dark thread that extends from the soul into the world. These threads interweave with others, forming a living web that connects all human beings according to the seeds they have sown. When the time of maturity comes, the threads return, bringing back the fruits of our own sowing. This returning of threads is what we call fate. The ignorant man calls fate unfair when he suffers, forgetting that the law only brings back what he once sent out. The wise man recognizes it as the mirror of his own past, given for his purification and upliftment. Because many sowings require long intervals to mature, their harvests often reach us in new earthly lives. Thus, the conditions of our birth, our family, health, nation, and even the challenges we face, are all threads drawn from our previous existences. No child is born by chance, each enters the earthly field at the precise moment and place where his threads of fate can best unfold and be redeemed. The threads of fate are not punishments, but pathways of healing. They lead us to those we have once loved, helped, harmed, or neglected. Enemies meet again to forgive or to atone. Friends reunite to complete unfinished work. Parents and children often exchange roles, so that each may learn both sides of experience, giving and receiving, leading and serving, suffering and consoling. If mankind understood this sacred weaving, hatred would cease, revenge would fade, and humility would blossom. For none could then say, I suffer unjustly, nor boast, I prosper by my own strength. All would know that divine justice works in silence, weaving each destiny with perfect accuracy. The recognition of this law transforms the heart. It awakens compassion toward others and responsibility toward oneself. It teaches that no thread can be cut by force or bribery, only by inner transformation, which changes the nature of the soul and thereby the pattern of its weaving. Thus, by purifying the threads we send forth daily, through pure thinking, noble deeds, and truthful speech, we begin to reweave our fate in light. Slowly, the dark knots of the past loosen, and the path becomes clear. Then, man no longer fears the law, he loves it, for it becomes his deliverer. Chapter 5. The History of Reincarnation, from Antiquity to Christendom. The knowledge of reincarnation is as ancient as mankind itself. It is not the invention of a culture or religion, but a reflection of truth perceived by awakened spirits in every age. In ancient Egypt, the priests taught that the soul journeys through successive forms until it attains purity. The pyramids and papyri bear witness to this teaching of eternal return and spiritual ascent. In India, the Vedas and Upanishads revealed the same law, describing the wheel of births and the release from it through enlightenment and purity of action. Among the Greeks, philosophers such as Pythagoras and Plato spoke clearly of the transmigration of souls, not as myth, but as divine wisdom. Even among the prophets of Israel, traces of this knowledge remained. The wisdom schools of Elijah and Elisha hinted at the return of souls to complete their missions. It was known among the Essenes and carried quietly into early Christendom. But as the centuries passed, human intellect began to distort and darken the truth. Material power replaced spiritual knowledge, dogma replaced understanding. In the councils of the early church, particularly under Emperor Justinian in the 6th century, the teaching of reincarnation was deliberately suppressed, declared heresy, and struck from Christian doctrine. Why? Because the rulers feared the liberation that comes from knowledge of divine justice. A man who knows that his destiny is self-created, that he cannot bribe heaven nor hide behind ritual, becomes free and responsible. Such a man cannot be ruled by fear, and so the rulers silence the truth. Yet truth cannot be buried. Through mystics, poets, and seekers, the knowledge re-emerged, in the works of Origen, the Cathars, the Sufis, and even in fragments of medieval Christianity. And in our age, through the Grail Message, the full light of this knowledge has been restored, not as an Eastern or Western concept, but as divine law active throughout creation. Reincarnation is not a human belief, it is God's method of justice and mercy. It ensures that every soul receives the exact measure of experience needed for growth, correction, and redemption. When man understands this, the religions of the world will no longer quarrel, for all will recognize the same law working beneath their symbols. Then humanity will stand united under one truth, the justice and love of God manifested through continuity of life. Chapter 6. Reincarnation and the Bible, the Hidden Light in Scripture. The Holy Scriptures, when read in the light of the living law, bear silent testimony to reincarnation. Though the word itself was later removed, the essence remains like golden threads woven through the text. When Jesus asked his disciples, "Whom do men say that I, the Son of Man, am?" They answered, "Some say John the Baptist, some Elijah, and others Jeremiah or one of the prophets." This answer reveals that belief in the return of souls was already accepted among the people of Israel. Christ did not rebuke them for this understanding, he confirmed its truth by his silence. Likewise, the prophecy of John the Baptist is a key. The angel told Zacharias that John would come, in the spirit and power of Elijah. Jesus himself declared, "If you are willing to accept it, he is Elijah who was to come." Here the Master unveiled the mystery plainly. The same Spirit that once labored as Elijah now returned in a new body as John, to prepare the way once more for the light. In the story of the man born blind, the disciples asked Jesus, "Who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" Their question shows that they knew suffering could be the result of sins committed before birth, an understanding possible only through the law of reincarnation. Christ's response, that the works of God might be made manifest in him, does not deny the law but reveals its deeper purpose, that through every fate, divine will and enlightenment may unfold. In the book of Job, the principle of sowing and reaping echoes through every verse. Job's suffering is not without cause, nor is his restoration without reason. The same spirit that once erred returns through new experiences until it understands and glorifies the law. Even the words of Paul the Apostle hold this hidden light. When he says, "Whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap," he speaks not of one short lifetime, but of the eternal operation of divine law. And when he says, "We shall all be changed," he affirms the transformation of the spirit through successive garments of flesh. The Bible, therefore, does not contradict reincarnation, it assumes it. It was man's limited understanding, not the Word of God, that concealed the truth. When the Scriptures are read in the radiance of the Grail Message, they awaken anew, no longer veiled in human interpretation, but alive with the pulse of divine law. Thus, the seeker of truth will find that reincarnation is the missing key that unlocks the justice, mercy, and continuity of God's plan. It reveals the unity of life, the reason for suffering, and the glory of ultimate redemption. It transforms fear into knowledge and belief into living conviction. Chapter 7. Science looks at reincarnation, evidence, reason, and resistance. For centuries, religion guarded the mysteries of the soul, while science sought to measure the visible world. Yet in this age of awakening, the two are being drawn closer, for both stand before the same eternal truth. The question of reincarnation, once dismissed as superstition, now stands again at the threshold of human inquiry, demanding sober thought and unbiased investigation. When we speak of reincarnation, we do not ask for blind belief, but for living understanding. Truth must not fear examination, it grows brighter under the light of honest reason. Throughout the last century, science has quietly gathered evidence that challenges materialist assumptions. Dr. Ian Stevenson's research at the University of Virginia documented thousands of children recalling verifiable past lives, names, events, deaths, and locations later confirmed by records. Cases in Burma, India, and Lebanon revealed children spontaneously identifying former families, with scars or birthmarks corresponding to wounds from their previous bodies. Hypnotic regressions by Dr. Helen Wambach and Dr. Brian Weiss uncovered memories with historical accuracy far beyond the subject's education. In quantum biology, experiments increasingly show that memory and consciousness are not confined to the physical brain but exist as energetic patterns, suggesting that individual awareness can survive physical death and re-embody where compatible. Yet, despite such evidence, resistance persists. Why? Because the acceptance of reincarnation strikes at the root of materialism. It demands that man admit he is more than a body, a spirit in eternal motion. It undermines every arrogance that clings to external knowledge while ignoring inner truth. Science fears what it cannot weigh. But the Grail Message teaches that the laws of matter and spirit are one, differing only in density and vibration. The soul, like light, cannot be imprisoned. It passes through forms as light through glass, taking on their color but remaining itself. As science grows humbler, it will rediscover that its laws mirror spiritual realities. Energy is never destroyed, only transformed. Action produces equal reaction, sowing and reaping. Systems evolve toward order, purification and ascent. These are not merely mechanical formulas, they are reflections of divine law, which governs both the atom and the human soul. The time approaches when true science will bow, not in defeat, but in reverence, before the grandeur of the living law. For in understanding reincarnation, science will rediscover its own purpose, to reveal the harmony of God's creation, not to obscure it. Chapter 8. The Mist of Error, False Teachings and Misinterpretations. Where light descends, shadows gather to distort it. Thus, the truth of reincarnation, pure and luminous in origin, has suffered many misinterpretations. Human imagination, divorced from spiritual understanding, turned divine order into fantasy. One false teaching claims that man may reincarnate into animals or plants, depending on his moral conduct. This is untrue. Spirit and animal soul are of entirely different origins and substance. The human spirit cannot descend into a non-spiritual form. Such would be contrary to the law of homogeneity. Once the spirit has awakened to self-consciousness in the human form, it can no longer go backward in evolution. Retrogression occurs in quality, not in species. A man may sink spiritually below the level of an animal in cruelty or vice, but his soul remains human in essence. Another error teaches that reincarnation is endless, a wheel without escape. This, too, is false. Reincarnation continues only until the spirit has matured, until it has learned to use its free will in harmony with the divine will. Then, having completed its schooling on earth, it no longer needs to return. It rises to the higher realms of light, living eternally in activity, not in repetition. Some sects misuse reincarnation to justify moral indifference, claiming that mistakes can always be corrected, next life. Such thinking leads not to enlightenment but to spiritual stagnation. Every life is sacred opportunity. What is neglected today may return tomorrow as pain, limitation, or delay. Mercy does not abolish the law, it works through it. Another distortion claims that through certain rituals, initiations, or gurus, one can erase karma. This, too, contradicts divine justice. No prayer, money, or ceremony can remove the harvest of one's own sowing. Only through genuine recognition, repentance, and renewed striving in light can the threads be transformed. Even among Christians, misunderstanding abounds. Many reject reincarnation outright, confusing it with pagan mythology. Yet in doing so, they deny the very justice of God they profess to uphold. For how can divine justice be complete if each man lives only once, yet faces eternal reward or punishment? Without the law of rebirth, heaven and hell become arbitrary, but through reincarnation, God's mercy and justice shine as one. Therefore, the Grail Message sweeps away the mist of error. It restores truth in its majesty, simple, lawful, incorruptible. Reincarnation is not myth, not comfort, not threat. It is divine wisdom in motion, the rhythm by which creation fulfills itself. Chapter 9. Karma and Freedom. Rebirth as opportunity, not punishment. Many fear the law of karma, imagining it as a relentless chain that binds them to endless suffering. But this fear arises only from misunderstanding. Karma is not punishment, it is education. It is the merciful law that allows the spirit to learn through experience what it once ignored in theory. Each rebirth is a new classroom in the great school of existence. When a man fails a lesson, love, humility, responsibility, he must repeat it until he learns. But each repetition offers new strength, new understanding, new grace. There is no cruelty in this, only patience and divine order. Through karma, God never condemns, He heals. The soul's errors are not erased by forgetting, but by living through their effects until understanding blossoms. Thus, karma transforms the ignorant into the wise, the selfish into the loving, and the unjust into the compassionate. Freedom lies not in escaping karma, but in cooperating with it consciously. When man understands that every experience serves his spiritual growth, he no longer resists or despairs. He becomes alert, thankful, and active in his purification. Then karma ceases to appear as bondage and reveals itself as the path of liberation. To the awakened spirit, each challenge is grace. The burden of debt becomes opportunity for service, the pain of loss becomes the fire of purification. Through understanding, even the heaviest chains dissolve, for what was once endured in rebellion is now embraced in humility. This is the freedom Christ meant when he said, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." To know the truth of karma and reincarnation is to know the justice and love of God at work in one's own life. It is to live responsibly, with courage, knowing that every moment carries seed and harvest. Thus, rebirth is not condemnation, it is divine mercy, the ever-renewed chance to grow, to serve, to become light. Chapter 10. Suffering, Inequality, and Justice, the Hidden Balance Revealed. Why does one child suffer while another lives in ease? Why are some born blind, crippled, poor, while others inherit beauty, wealth, and strength? To those who see only one lifetime, these differences appear unjust, the work of chance or favoritism. But to those who see through the law of reincarnation, the hidden balance is revealed. Suffering is not a curse, it is correction, the consequence of prior causes. Inequality is not injustice, it is the reflection of each soul's own maturity and needs. Every condition of life, pleasant or painful, is precisely measured to serve the spirit's development. Those who once misused power may return in poverty, to learn humility. Those who once oppressed may return as the oppressed, to understand mercy. Those who once scorned may be scorned, until compassion awakens. Thus, divine justice educates without revenge, and mercy operates through consequence. History, too, bears this out. Whole nations that once enslaved others have later fallen under oppression themselves, reaping the seeds they sowed collectively. Empires that glorified conquest collapsed beneath their own weight. Civilizations that worshipped intellect above spirit sank into confusion, until they vanished like smoke. This is not the wrath of God, it is His order. Every excess calls forth its balancing opposite, every neglect its corrective demand. When humanity learns this, wars will cease. For who would oppress another, knowing that every blow returns upon himself? Suffering loses its sting when seen in this light. It becomes the refiner's fire through which the soul is cleansed of arrogance and ignorance. Inequality becomes a ladder of learning, where each rung teaches gratitude, compassion, and service. The Grail Message reveals, there is no injustice in the universe. Every tear, every smile, every destiny is weighed and guided by law. When this truth dawns in mankind, despair will vanish, envy will fade, and rebellion against fate will end. Then humanity will finally rest in peace, in the certainty of divine justice. Chapter 11. The Karma of Nations, Collective Reincarnation and History's Lessons. The collective soul of humanity. Nations are not mere geographical boundaries, they are living organisms formed from the collective spiritual state of their peoples. Just as an individual spirit reaps what he sows, so too do nations, empires, and civilizations harvest what they have collectively woven in thought, speech, and deed across ages. The karma of a nation is the mirror of its people's will. Cycles of rise and decline. Throughout history, the rise of ancient civilizations, Egypt, Greece, Rome, Babylon, Israel, followed the same spiritual rhythm, ascent through alignment with divine laws, and decline through arrogance, oppression, and moral decay. When a people sow greed, conquest, and injustice, they must reap slavery, division, and downfall. Yet the fall is never destruction, but purification, a chance to begin anew on higher ground. The law in collective motion. Every national karma unfolds through generations. Those who once oppressed may return as the oppressed. Those who misused authority may reincarnate under the weight of subjugation, learning humility through experience. Thus, through time, the pendulum of justice swings until balance is restored. Colonial powers, warlike nations, and exploitative economies today face the fruits of former misuse, unrest, moral confusion, and decline of unity. The hope of renewal. Yet divine law is merciful. No nation is doomed. Every rebirth offers renewal, if only the people awaken to truth, justice, and service. When a people begin to live in harmony with God's laws again, honesty, purity, justice, the land flourishes, unity strengthens, and peace returns. The karma of nations teaches that the destiny of humanity is collective redemption through recognition of the light. Chapter 12. The Memory Veil, Why We Forget Our Past Lives. The Gift of Forgetfulness. Many wonder, if reincarnation is true, why do we not remember our past lives? The answer lies in the mercy and wisdom of divine law. Forgetfulness is a gift, a veil drawn by grace to protect the spirit's development. Were we to recall all past deeds, relationships, and pains, the weight of guilt and attachment would overwhelm the growing soul. Continuity without conscious memory. Though the conscious memory is veiled, the essence of all experiences remains alive within the soul. Every instinct, fear, attraction, and talent is a seed from past sowing. A child's natural gifts, inclinations, or aversions are echoes of former lives. The soul remembers in its tendencies, not in its intellect. Thus, justice is carried forward silently, but precisely. The role of the subconscious and intuition. Through intuition, dreams, and inspiration, glimpses of former experiences sometimes surface, not as curiosity, but as guidance. When rightly interpreted, such flashes help a soul to recognize patterns and correct them. However, deliberate attempts to force past life recall often lead to deception, illusion, or obsession. Only purification and genuine spiritual maturity can lift the veil safely. The right time for remembrance. As the soul unfolds and nears maturity, fragments of its eternal journey may gently reveal themselves, not for vanity, but for understanding. In the higher spheres, where the soul lives in clarity, remembrance is full and luminous. On earth, forgetfulness is an act of love from the Creator, allowing each incarnation to be lived as a new opportunity, fresh, pure, and focused on present duty. Chapter 13. The Circle of Birth and Death, Passage Between Worlds. The Continuum of Life. Death is not an end, it is a doorway. The same law that governs the blossoming of a flower governs the human spirit's passage through realms. Birth and death are only transitions, exits and entrances, in the great rhythm of existence. Life is unbroken, like a stream flowing through changing landscapes. Departure from the earthly realm. When the silver cord that binds spirit to body loosens, consciousness gradually withdraws. The individual passes into the ethereal world corresponding to his inner vibration, luminous or dark, peaceful or confused, according to the purity of his soul. Death reveals the true nature of one's inner life, nothing can be hidden there. The intermediate realms and preparation. Between incarnations, the soul dwells in planes of learning and purification. Helpers and guides assist in reviewing the last life, not as judges, but as illuminators. Each soul recognizes its errors, the harm or good it caused, and the lessons still unlearned. Out of this recognition, the soul longs for a new chance to fulfill the law, thus the next incarnation is prepared in accordance with karmic necessity and spiritual readiness. Re-entry into matter. When conditions are ripe, parents, time, environment, and circumstances harmonize with the law of reciprocity, the soul is drawn again toward the earth. The attraction is magnetic, not arbitrary. Each birth is exact justice. Thus, birth and death are not opposites but parts of a perfect rhythm, leading the spirit step by step towards self-conscious perfection in the light. Chapter 14. Children and Rebirth, the Unfolding of the Spirit Through Youth. The Spirit Before Birth. Each child carries within it an invisible history, a treasury of experiences, strengths, and debts. It is not a blank slate but a returning traveler, beginning a new chapter. Its outer form may be new, but its inner content is ancient. Parents are given the sacred duty to guide, not possess, to nurture the unfolding of what already exists within the soul. Early signs and tendencies. Watch a child carefully. The sparkle in the eyes, the fear of darkness, the ease in learning, or the stubborn resistance to correction. These are not random traits but echoes of the past. A child's natural gifts are not accidental, they are rewards from previous efforts. Likewise, certain disabilities are limitations or opportunities chosen by the soul to balance past excesses or strengthen compassion. The parental task. Parents, educators, and society must therefore treat every child as a unique soul on a divine mission. Discipline must not be tyranny, nor indulgence neglect, but guidance with understanding of divine justice. To nurture a child is to cooperate with God's law, allowing the young spirit to unfold freely, without coercion or fear. Education that acknowledges reincarnation becomes sacred, for it sees in every child a future bearer of light. The child as teacher. Many children today are reincarnated old souls, returning to bring light, innovation, and renewal. Their sensitivity, wisdom, or rebellion often mirrors humanity's need for change. Let us learn from them, even as we guide them. In honoring the reincarnating child, we honor the divine order itself, for through each young life, God renews the world and continues His work of love and justice. Chapter 15. Reincarnation and Forgiveness, How Love Liberates the Law. The healing power of love. The law of reciprocal action is strict, exact, and unwavering. Every deed, word, and thought produces its corresponding effect. Yet above and within this precision flows the warmth of divine love. Forgiveness does not annul the law, but transforms how it is fulfilled. Love is the redeeming fire that can dissolve the hardness of karma, because it brings recognition and change. The inner process of liberation. When the spirit truly repents, not with words, but with a deep inner turning toward the light, the vibration of his will changes. The past sowings, still awaiting reaping, find no longer the same soil of arrogance and darkness in which to bear their painful fruits. Instead, they meet an awakened soul that receives them in humility, patience, and understanding. Through this, the sting of the harvest is lessened and the law fulfilled with mercy. Forgiveness is not forgetfulness. Many misunderstand forgiveness as forgetting or excusing wrongs. True forgiveness is spiritual rectification, a conscious release of resentment and the will to set right what was once disordered. When we forgive, we harmonize ourselves with divine currents of love, thereby loosening karmic chains that bind both the wronged and the wrongdoer. For as long as hatred endures, the thread of karma remains taut. Love alone can untie it. Christ and the fulfillment of the law. The coming of the Son of God revealed the highest path of liberation within the law. His call to love your enemies was not moral advice but cosmic truth, for through love, the soul rises above the circle of retaliation and enters the current of grace. Reincarnation offers many chances to learn. Forgiveness completes the learning by awakening the spirit to love. Thus, through love, karma becomes fulfilled not by compulsion, but by willing harmony with God. Chapter 16. The Danger of Curiosity, the Abuse of Psychic Recollection. The Temptation of Hidden Knowledge. As humanity awakens to subtle realities, curiosity about past lives, spiritual planes, and hidden powers grows rapidly. But the desire to uncover one's previous incarnations through mediums, hypnosis, or psychic practices is fraught with peril. What is veiled by divine wisdom must not be torn open by human impatience. The law of spiritual development demands maturity, not intrusion. Illusion and deception. In the astral realms surrounding the earth dwell countless entities of half-light, clinging to their desires and delusions. Many who seek psychic revelations without purification attract deceptive influences that mirror their own curiosity and vanity. False visions, imagined pasts, and glamorous tales of former greatness often emerge from such practices, leading the seeker further from truth into webs of illusion. The right approach to the past. The true purpose of reincarnation knowledge is self-recognition, not spectacle. A soul that sincerely strives to live rightly in the present need not know its detailed past. The lessons it must learn are already reflected in its current circumstances. Each difficulty, attraction, or aversion is a pointer to past causes. If we faithfully fulfill our duties today, the past will be corrected automatically through the working of divine law. Humility is protection. The humble soul, content to trust God's wisdom, grows securely. Curiosity, however, opens breaches in the soul's protection. The path of light requires reverence, not meddling. When the time is ripe, higher guidance brings remembrance naturally, gently, and purposefully, never as sensation, but as illumination. Let us therefore beware of the restless desire for mysteries and instead strive to become the mystery fulfilled in purity. Chapter 17. Reincarnation and Salvation. The Word, not the cycle, redeems. The purpose of reincarnation. Reincarnation is not a goal, but a means, a merciful provision of divine justice for the education and purification of the spirit. It is the classroom of experience through which man learns the laws of God. Yet eternal repetition is not salvation, it is the process toward it. The purpose of rebirth ends once the spirit becomes conscious of the will of God and begins to live within it. Salvation through recognition of the Word. The Word of God, the living truth, is the only bridge from the cycle of return into eternal life. When a soul awakens to the law through the living Word, it ceases to struggle blindly against divine order. The Word brings understanding, and understanding brings obedience. Once the will aligns perfectly with the light, the compulsion to reincarnate ceases, for the soul has learned all that the earthly school can teach. Christ and the end of the cycle. Christ came not to deny reincarnation, but to lead beyond it. His call to be born anew points to the inner transformation that ends the necessity of rebirth. When the spirit becomes light through truth, it no longer belongs to the density of matter. Thus, through the word of truth, not mere belief, but living obedience, the spirit attains salvation, which is conscious union with the will of God. Living the word, not debating it. Doctrines, dogmas, and arguments about past lives cannot redeem a soul. Only the living application of divine truth can. To live the word means to think, speak, and act in harmony with the laws of justice, purity, and love. Then every karmic thread dissolves naturally, every rebirth finds completion, and the spirit steps out of the wheel into freedom. Salvation, then, is not an escape, but the fulfillment of law through perfect understanding. Chapter 18. The End of Rebirth, the Spirit's Graduation into the Light. Completion of the cycle. When the spirit has fully developed self-consciousness through repeated incarnations, it no longer needs the dense school of earth. It has matured into an instrument of the light, radiating harmony instead of discord. At this stage, reincarnation ceases, not as punishment or privilege, but as graduation. The law that once bound the spirit to return now releases it, for the purpose has been achieved. Life beyond earthly birth. Beyond the cycle of earthly rebirth lies the luminous existence in the spiritual realms, the homeland of all awakened spirits. There, form and substance are pure, responsive to the will of love and service. The spirit works creatively within divine harmony, aiding younger souls still in development, contributing to the expansion of creation's beauty. There is no death there, only transformation, no forgetting, only eternal knowing. Freedom through fulfillment. Freedom is not rebellion against law, but unity with it. The liberated spirit moves in joyful obedience to divine will, its personality purified, its individuality glorified. It is no longer drawn downward by selfish desires or attachments to matter, but rises upward naturally, like light returning to its source. This is the true resurrection, the awakening of the spirit into the light of truth. The eternal now. In the radiant spheres, time as we know it ceases. The spirit lives in the eternal present, a state of unbroken peace, perfect clarity, and ceaseless service. It is the triumph of justice and love, the completion of the circle of life. The wheel of rebirth has served its purpose. The spirit, crowned with understanding, enters the kingdom prepared for those who have learned to live in the law. Conclusion. The triumph of light, the revelation of divine justice. The justice that shines beyond the veil. Throughout ages, men have struggled to understand justice. They saw suffering and cried out, "Why?" They saw the wicked prosper and whispered, "Where is God?" They watched the innocent fall and murmured, "There is no fairness in life." Yet the light reveals that divine justice is not absent, it is simply unseen by eyes veiled in limitation. The law of karma, the law of attraction, and the law of spiritual gravity interweave so precisely that no injustice can ever remain unbalanced, no deed unmeasured, no tear unnoticed. Divine justice is not retribution but restoration, a rhythmic adjustment that brings every soul into harmony with the eternal order. What men call punishment is only the shadow cast by their own departure from the light. The moment man returns to truth, the shadow fades, and only justice, radiant, perfect, liberating, remains. The triumph of recognition. The triumph of light is not an event in time, it is the awakening within the soul. The spirit that once blamed others, feared fate, and doubted God, finally sees the grandeur of law and bows in reverence. In that recognition lies redemption. For the light has always triumphed, it is only man's ignorance that delayed his joy. As humanity awakens, individually and collectively, the apparent contradictions of life begin to harmonize. Suffering becomes instruction, loss becomes purification, delay becomes mercy. The same law that once bound now liberates, for man begins to live within it, not against it. This is the victory of truth, when man ceases to curse what blesses him. Divine justice and the Grail light. The Grail message restores to mankind the living understanding of divine law, that every human being is the architect of his own destiny, that no priest or prophet can intercede against the working of justice, and that God's mercy operates through the law, not against it. This revelation overturns false doctrines of predestination and blind chance. It reveals that God's will is light, unchangeable, eternal, and just, and that all who live in this will live in peace. The radiance of fulfillment. When the light of truth illuminates the soul, fear vanishes. The soul no longer trembles before karma, but thanks it for its teaching. The human being ceases to see life as punishment or reward and recognizes it as growth. Each incarnation, each experience, becomes a classroom in which the divine teacher writes with love upon the blackboard of existence. Then dawns the triumph of light, when humanity, purified by suffering and awakened by truth, walks again in harmony with creation. Nations will rise from the ruins of pride, and men will live as brothers, bound not by creed but by recognition of law. The light will shine through all things, not as belief, but as knowledge. And the words once spoken by the Son of God will be fulfilled, the truth shall make you free. Epilogue. The eternal now, life beyond death and birth. The circle completed. Beyond the cycles of birth and death lies the stillness of eternity, not emptiness, but fullness, not slumber, but luminous activity. The spirit, freed from the heaviness of matter, moves in harmony with the divine will. Its journey through many lives has not been meaningless wandering but purposeful evolution, the unfolding of the divine image within. Every pain, every joy, every lesson has led to this awakening, the realization that all existence is now. The eternal present. In the spiritual world, time dissolves into the eternal present. There, the soul does not remember, it knows. It does not strive, it is. It no longer measures days or years, for all movements occur in perfect rhythm with divine intention. What was once, past, or future, merges into one living radiance of being. The spirit perceives the threads of all its incarnations as one tapestry, shimmering with meaning and justice. This is the eternal now, where the soul rests in perfect balance, neither yearning for what was nor fearing what will come, but living as pure will within the stream of divine harmony. The peace of fulfillment. The end of rebirth is not extinction, but transfiguration. The spirit, now conscious of its origin and purpose, radiates peace into creation. It works joyfully for the good of all, no longer driven by karma but moved by love. This is eternal life, the life of service, creativity, and illumination within the kingdom of light. Every spirit that attains this state becomes a beacon for others still journeying through the school of time. Thus, the cycle continues, not as bondage, but as blessing. The higher serves the lower, and the whole creation sings of the glory of divine justice fulfilled. The Word made living. The Grail light reveals that eternity is not a distant promise but a present reality. Even now, the earnest seeker can live in the eternal by aligning thought, speech, and action with the will of God. Each moment of purity, gratitude, and love connects the soul to the timeless current of the light. In such a life, death loses its sting, for life is known as continuous, one heartbeat of divine rhythm. The final illumination. Thus ends not a doctrine, but a revelation, that life is one, justice is perfect, and love is eternal. The circle is complete. The spirit that once wandered in darkness now stands radiant in the light, conscious of the law and grateful for it. In the eternal now, the voice of truth resounds quietly. You have never died, only slept. You have never been lost, only learning. You have never been forsaken, only called. Return now to the light from which you came. For the circle of life is fulfilled in love.